my maturation process over the last 3 years has been really crazy because I didn't want to mature. I wanted to be stuck in my ways.
Why not?
Because I just felt like I still had that chip on my shoulder. And I felt like I had to prove something to people.
Yeah.
I got to move differently. And shout out to my man, Johnny Smalls. He said, he gave me the best advice. He was just like, yo, bro, sometimes you just got to shut up and let your work show. And that's what I did. I said, let me shut up. Let me cool on this arrogant stuff. And let me put that backpack back on and get back in the trenches.
Let's get it started.
Double O.
Free range, motherfucker. Yeah. Check. Tuned into the Free Range podcast with Double O. And right now, got the homie Hustle Simmons. We out here remote in the hotel room.
Facts.
In Chicago. I'm here.
He got money. It's a nice hotel room.
You know.
They got the little Asian usher bed in here. Like, he lit.
You know what I'm saying? You got a bad bed right there.
Exactly. He knew what I was talking about. That was crazy.
But now, you know, I've known Hustle for a long time. I mean, probably right as I started coming to Chicago, before, you know, when Hustle Period, the label was the thing that was really moving on the ground here with the man John Monopoly, and he had signed us, and everything just started kind of gravitating around that. But we were just having a conversation that I wanted to kind of get on tape, where we started talking about, you know, waking up one day and realizing that you were the old heads.
Yes. Definitely old head.
But I feel like we're in such an interesting space with hip hop now, because it's like, if we were 10 years earlier and we would have been the same age, or even, you know, obviously 15, 20 years, you would have just been like, oh man, I guess it's time to either hang it up or phase out or do it into something. And now I'm coming up on 40 in like less than a month now. I feel more invigorated to do stuff because now the future looks so much longer because of all the different options and opportunities and all the different spaces, where it's just like, oh, there's so many different avenues now that are not just based on whether or not you really hit a traditional, like, if I don't hit a record deal by this point, then these fans aren't going to like me, and then all of that. So do you feel the same way, or is that? Yeah,
I feel like we came at a period where, like you got to think about, like, the people before us, they was kind of like one-trick ponies, you know? Mm-hmm. So with us coming at a time where, like, social media was starting to crack, we had to do everything, you know what I'm saying? So you transition from running track to rapping / producing to DJing to, you know what I'm saying? So I just think for us, plus we looked at people before us who just didn't live up to their potential, basically. So I just think we live in a day and age where we're not a one-trick pony. So I'm 37, but I feel like I'm 27. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm actually having fun doing what I'm doing. Because I'm evolving. I look at people like Puff. That's like, you never look at Puff and see old head. Puff is Puff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just because he's been able to evolve and stuff like that. So I think we just came at a period where we really loved what we was doing. We just had to figure it out.
So first for real question. Do you have a goal? This is something that I stole totally from Tim Ferriss' podcast I just listened to. But do you have a goal where you're like, okay, cool, I've made it? Or is this an infinite game for you? Do you just see yourself evolving in it, or is it just like, no, you have like a number marker where you can tap out?
This is the thing. I've always been in it with an end game, you know. So I never was like, oh man, let me just keep doing it till I make enough money to like. So my end game was just to I always wanted to create a label and an agency that was pro artists, that was strictly about, I don't have to get over on you to eat. I'm gonna help you make your money. You're gonna help me make my money. Cool. And then on the other side of that, I wanted to own a live music venue that was for the up and coming artists. I think a lot of times these artists get lost and they feel like, man, I'm doing these hole in the wall places. I want to get to the field more. I want to get to stuff like that. So I've always had my end game in mind. That's why I never really hit that. Oh my God, I'm an old man. What I'm about to do next.
But is that really an end game though? Because if you achieve those things, you're not done, because then you have to run them, then you have to build them up, or
yeah.
you're just ready to cash
No,
out.
I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna have my agency and keep doing what I'm doing, but I'm gonna be more so just chilling.
Yeah,
because I think for me I feel like for me that's an end game, because I'm about to create something that's going to make everybody else have to restructure how they do things.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that our generation has done, we have helped evolve just how you do stuff. Like we a YouTube generation. I can YouTube anything. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I'm not about to work on a car like our dad did. Like I'm not about to go. I'm not building
like,
a house for my wife. Yeah, you
this?
know. So I think, you know, I love doing what I'm doing, but I think my end game is to create something that's shake things up. And I think that's what my career has always been about, like trying to shake things up. From even my approach to everything I was doing, I was kind of like, everything I was doing was like a big FU to the people that came before us who didn't see it how I see it.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. I was watching an old interview of you, and you were talking about basically like your first show, maybe last job, shifting from retail at Adidas and moving over into the entertainment space because you were tired of not getting the credit for what you had going on. Were you always trying to, like you said, have these two sort of visions where you had the live space cornered and creating that space to be able to build up artists in the live capacity, and also management, marketing, branding, all of that, or was one come for the other? Like,
it's weird. All I really wanted to do was be the new young John Monopoly mixed with Puff mixed with George Daniels.
Okay.
Right? So for me, I reached out. I reached out to John Monop. I wanted to be part of Hustle, period. I wanted to learn. But John had a lot of stuff going on. I was working at Adidas, never worked out. I reached out to Kenny Burns. Like, yo, wrote this long, like, MySpace message, whatever. Never reached out. So for me, I sat there with this chip on my shoulder, like, yo, I want to carry the crates into the club. Yeah. I want to go get the coffee. Show me. Because I was a marketing major. So I was going to school for fashion marketing. And so I was working for Polo and different stuff like that, and Adidas or whatever. But then I started getting pushed into music because I was finding artists like Wale and Pac Div and different artists on MySpace. And so I was like, damn, I have an ear for this. Yeah. So I started getting pushed into it. But I was really just looking at what John Monop did for Ye. And I remember one day I was sitting there, I was like, okay, he just shot off Ye. Who gonna shoot off these young dudes? So I tried to create a platform in college to like give younger artists this platform. I didn't think it was gonna turn into what it is today. I was just like, yo, I want to pay my tuition and I'm gonna just figure it out. But it made my approach to the game different because I always had this chip where I'm like, dang, these dudes who I admire don't want to rock with little me. And I'm like, damn, I'm not trying to take y'all's spot. I'm just trying to make y'all spot better. And so that kind of like lit the fire in me. And it also hurt. It also made my growth period a lot longer than it should have been.
Yeah. It's interesting because you say that because you obviously, I mean, you see a lot of these cats online, Gary Vee, and they talk about really offering yourself and your services and just being like, and being super humble and being like, I'm willing to grind it. But then they don't talk about the fact that like when nobody takes those.
Yeah, they never talk about that.
And granted, it's a little bit different now, but I think that sometimes I think he does miss the mark on the cultural understanding too in that space where you're not always going to find there's going to be more people because at that time you had people like Street around, and then you had Billy J in New York. You had all of these people that were already kind of in the space. Sometimes it's really hard to figure out what you can offer to get somebody to actually to fuck with you. But then you figured it out because you, I guess I would assume, just looked from afar, broke down kind of like how they did their basic things, and then built it from there.
I never looked at what they did good. That was never my approach. So like I never looked at the Kenny Burns and the John Monops and patting what I was doing off what they did right. Mm-hmm. I looked at the things I would hear and the things I would see that they did wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's why I felt like basically all I've ever done my whole career was fill voids.
Yeah.
When I worked for Ralph Lauren, I was like, all right, I'm the connect now. So if y'all shooting a video, y'all need some polo, I can call Monopoly like, yo, I can get corporate to get y'all free clothes. I always just, when I was at Adidas, we could do Adidas events in the store. Like I always wanted to fill that void because I was looking at things, I'd be like, okay, what's not being done? Because I can't emulate the Kenny Burns and the John Monopoly because they've had that success on that level.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, I have to look at what they did wrong and say, I'm going to fix everything y'all did wrong because what y'all did right, I could do that. But what y'all did wrong, I'm going to correct that and I'm going to prepare myself to this level. And so that's what I've always looked at. Like, even when we talk about haters, like I always say, listen to your haters. There's some truth to what they're saying.
What was the first thing in that space, in that gap of what was not being met at that high level that you started attacking?
I felt like the youth was not being heard. They was around the youth. They wasn't listening to the youth, So it was like, for me, you look at someone like a John Monopoly and what he's done for Chicago has been amazing. You have to look at the Billy J's, the J Streets, like the Tiffany Hardens, like all these people that was under him that he's seen the greatness in them, but he had to take care of what he had to take care of. Mm-hmm. So to me, I look at it as like, wow, what if he really say, okay, I got Ye where Ye is at. I have these other artists, but let me groom these young creatives and create this powerhouse where I'm that guy.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's what I was doing. I was listening to the youth. I was saying like, yo, J Street, what can we do? Hey, bro, can you book Mano for this event? You know what I'm saying? Adidas wanted Timbuktu, rest in peace to my brother, but Mano hadn't became Mano yet. Yeah. So Mano was the homie, so I'm like, definitely, let's do it. They wanted Lupe, because Lupe was just cracking at the time, but then I'm like, what about Rhymefest? What about GLC? What about Knowledge? Like, so it was just like, I just said, you know what? I'm going to listen to the youth. I'm part of the youth. We know what's hot because we're on the internet. And this internet thing is about to take off. MySpace is going crazy. So I'm like, yo, let's listen to the youth. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, all I was trying to do is I looked at John Monop as being the Andre Harrell, and I was going to be the Puff. Yeah. But I was going to always be like Monop. And me and Monop has a good relationship to this day. And like, I still like watch moves that he does and have conversations with him from time to time. And you know what I'm saying? He'd say some stuff. We broke bread a few times and stuff like that. But for me, it was more so like, it's a little youth revolution going on right now. Cool kids, you guys, myself, Mano, Mike Terra, Hollywood Holt, like, then you had like Pac Dev, you had you and I, you had Dom Kennedy, you had like this revolution of like young creatives. Like, we all went to college. Some finished, some didn't, but we went to college and was like, okay, all right, we see what this is. This is not 1988. Like, we're not just gonna go to school for 4 years, get a wife, get a picket fence. Like, we on some rebel stuff. So I just tried to like own that energy and just try to be like that vessel for the youth to just do cool stuff moving forward and make the John Monops, the Kenny Burns, the George Daniels, the Puffs proud that they can be like, yo, dog, you did it the right way.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just with Ill Mind, and he was at one of his Pass the Aux events, and one of the things that I tried to tell the people there and things he always tries to convey is you came here for me, right? Because I'm the Grammy Award winning whatever artist, right? But the most important connections are, to the left and to the right, right? Because it's like, oftentimes I think people look at the thing that they're aspiring to be, and it's just like, oh man, if that person just would, let me just hold out even their pinky, I'd be out of here.
Yeah.
But the people next to them are probably one of them is gonna blow, and building that relationship is always almost more important. Because when that class matriculates and moves into the space, then everybody in that is like, oh yeah, when we were doing XYZ and you were helping me doing this when it was 5 people at a show.
Yeah.
And now we're at 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Like that to me, I always still look at that as, believe me, it can be annoying and frustrating and all of those things. But, even for us, we were signed by Manap. But we still we're on the outside looking in at what was happening at Good Music.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh man, we're over here at Raucous, but it's like they're over there doing all the fun fancy stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end, he was right in that be the big fish in the in the small pond, and then that allows, I think, in everything that you're saying, whether intentionally or not, you are carving a lane. What I always try to tell people is like, the best thing you can do is not always try to jump in somebody else's lane, because it's well carved. They got that. Like they're going to be able to just murder that and just keep going.
Yeah.
Even if they took a break,
Yeah.
you think you've seen some light of day, and they're like, oh no, I'm back in the car now.
Yeah.
My car is better and faster and whatever than yours, and really figuring out how to find those gaps. It's funny. That's like, I always. The whole reason why I put all this stuff together is because of what I realized is, with my schooling and with all of that, what I've learned in hip hop is basically, master's degree level business on, in the real world. And as I talk to more and more people, connecting those dots, so much of it is that. A lot of people talk about it's like a 80-20 thing. Like you want to be 80% of something extremely familiar, but the 20% difference is what makes you the unique idea. And it's the same idea. Like you found, where there were flaws in a successful system and filled those in.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about it is that still, me coming from New York, Chicago, especially at that time, was this very special, interesting thing going on that I guess it was happening in Brooklyn a little bit, but it really was happening in Chicago for Black people.
Yeah.
Call it hipster, call it whatever it was at the time. There was something interesting happening where you had a break from the norm of what normally people would have aspired to be. Yeah. And I don't know if that's necessarily because of Ye or because of Lupe. But what do you think was, because you're from here, so what was happening at the ground level that created this space where you could have, obviously, knowledge of myself, but, Cool Kids, Mano, Flosstradamus, everything that was happening in the fashion space. Yeah. Like, what was happening? What makes Chicago special in that way that you could have that growing?
Well, people forget, like, we're in the middle, right? So we hear all day about what's going on in New York. Yeah. We hear all day what's going on, in LA, and then Atlanta was starting to like super bubble. I think for us in the Midwest, our main thing that we have is like figuring stuff out, right? We got crappy weather, fatty foods, you know what I'm saying? Like crooked politicians. And so
fake pizza. I got to fuck with y'all.
New York people eat street meats. They buy meats off the street. But we'll talk about that later. Yes, but I think it was a thing where we all, up until Ye cracked, the only thing we was looking at, we had Twista, we had Common. But Common was more so like went to New York and doing his thing. I think when Ye popped, we seen ourselves in Ye, like, oh my God, bro, he's a weird asshole like we are. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so then it was like, okay, Ye popped, and then it was like, oh shit, Lupe cracking that, like, oh my God, like, we can really do this. Like, now the door is open for us in hip hop. Yeah. At Twista's peak, well, Twista hadn't even hit his peak yet. That was kind of like after like Kanye and stuff like that. But, you know, we seen Ye, and then we seen Manop. But I think when we seen GL, Don, Ivan, like, yo, we know these dudes. Like, damn, they overseas. Like, oh, we could really do this. Oh, wait. And then at the time, we was all in college trying to figure it out. So when Ye said college dropout, we was like, skip that, let's do our thing. So it was just really an organic situation where we was just like, let's do this, you know? And I think we all aspire to be part of good music. I think we all, to see knowledge in yourself, like Kids in the Hall, like, we felt that. Like, we felt that. Because, like, for me, I'm from the West Side, but I always went to nice schools. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of like that balance of, like, yeah, I'm from the block, but I got good schooling. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I just think it was one of those situations where we all were trying to figure it out from, like, you know, remembering Lupe's father dojo and remembering, you know, Mano DJing parties in high school. You know, I went to high school with Kid's sister, Josh, her brother Josh, Mikey Rocks went to my high school, Hollywood Hope went to my high school. Like, we were just all like, we were just different, you know what I'm saying? And when Kanye cracked, it just really showed us like, oh, we could do this, but we got to do it on our own. So that's why it was like these showcases and stuff like that. We was like, you know, we was rocking with Kid Cudi on YouTube. Like, when Cudi was before Day and Night, like, we was like really rocking with each other because we was just like, yo, we can do this music thing, but we don't know how we're gonna do it, but we're gonna figure it out. Like, because even when you guys came, like, it hadn't been nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? So people looking at it, it's like, okay, y'all rapping some real stuff, but y'all went to like really good schooling. Like y'all are really educated. Wait, y'all are really fly. Like, you know what I'm saying? You know, you was like, man, I was just in the Olympics. Like, I was doing this. So it was just kind of like this. Everybody was just carving their own lane because it was all we was trying to do was find out how to get to Kanye level. That's the only thing we knew. So we all had to, like, you know, blaze our path. And that's why it's crazy when you see the artists that Cool Kids have birthed. You know what I'm saying? Mano winning Grammys. Hollywood Hope, you know what I'm saying, signing to good music. The success I've had in my career. Flostradamus traveling all over the world. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You guys having a TV show and all this stuff that was going on. It was just like, we figured it out. We figured it out. Now, how do we sustain it? Yeah. Or is it worth sustaining?
It's two things, because tagging the first part, what I still find interesting is that, and again, I only know because I was in Chicago during that time to really know. And I know it was vastly different than what I had come from when I was running track in LA. Yeah. But I realized going back to LA that LA was birthing its own scene that would, you know, with Thundercats, Jay Davies,
shout out to Jay Davey.
Flying Lotus. Yeah. Like, they had this whole thing that was happening on the east side. But there was still something really interesting, and maybe it is the juxtaposition that everything in Chicago, you could be in a nice house. Yeah. You could be in a cool block. But then when you go to the end of the block to go play basketball, some gang shit right there. Like, you're never too, something is, there's always been, it doesn't matter who it is, and it doesn't matter whether a person is grown up middle class or grown up working class or whatever, that there is this dichotomy that's always trying to find a level space between doing well and being able to have a black doctor, a black dentist, all of that, but then still have all the hood politics and all the things going on at the same time.
Lupe from the west side of Chicago.
Yeah.
But his approach to music, his thought process, the way he raps, is like, okay, I rep local, but I think global.
Yeah.
You know, you have someone like Kanye from the South Side, like the pink polo, stuff like that. Like, that's true. Like, we see both sides of the fence. But at the end of the day, all we want to do is be heard.
Yeah.
So that's why I say we try to figure it out, because, you know, I come from a family. I got some real hood mugs in my family. But for me, they was like, oh, no, Terrence, you're going to go to school. You're going to be straight. But you're right. Like, even if you take, like, Hyde Park, Muhammad Ali lived there. Louis Farrakhan. Like, it's mansions in Hyde Park. Yeah. But the next block over, you know, it's mugs on the corner eating Popeyes, gangbanging. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's just how Chicago is. Chicago is so segregated that it's just like nothing is just what it is. Like when I moved to the burbs, in my mind, I think it's gonna be like some Brady Bunch type stuff. But at the time I moved to the burbs as a teenager, all these black families was moving there, and the whole landscape of the suburbs changed. Yeah. Now when I go to certain parts of the suburb, it looks just like the South Side. It's just like, dang, like what happened? But I think you're right. Like, I mean, even like you take like the hipster scene, like we were black kids mixing with white rock kids with all the same objective. So when you look at somebody like a Hollywood Hope and you listen to him and you watch him, he's really like, when you look at him, you be like, oh, he's super punk rock, but he's also super hip hop. Yeah. And I think that's what we all had. We all had this, like, I feel like we was the beginning of like the overly cultured generation. Like, we just started seeing so much. Like, our parents listened to one type of music. Our parents had one type of objective. For us, we were just throwing darts at the board waiting for something to stick. But, you know, we was taking in, you know, all this stuff. We was hanging with the Josh Maddens of the world. Like, you know what I'm saying? We was watching Lupe be Lupe. We was watching Kanye work with Hove and work with, you know, Kanye started doing stuff we had never seen before. Yeah. Like, yo, like, bro, you really hanging at Louis Vuitton? How is that? Like, what? You know what I'm saying? So I think it's right. I think Chicago just an interesting place. Like New York, you always see New York on TV. You always see LA on TV. So you see what New York is. And so I think at that particular time, our generation said, F New York, F LA, we're going to do us. Yeah. And I think up until that point, some of the hip hop scene in Chicago was trying to, I don't want to say emulate New York, but they was heavily influenced by New York. And I just think when we came, we wasn't necessarily influenced by New York. We wasn't influenced by LA. We was influenced by the world. We wanted BAPE. We looked at, you know, what they were doing in Japan. Like, you know, we were the first kids with the internet. So we was able to Google and look at things that we couldn't necessarily obtain at that point, but we knew they was there. Yeah. And I think for Chicago, that was just like, at the end of the day, we just wanted to be heard. And at the time, we had the hottest new dude in the game, Ye. And then he ushered in Lupe, who still to this day, I debate with people like, yo, like Lupe, one of the coldest lyricists ever. Period. Like, even now when he be rapping about stuff, like, I don't understand. Like, I don't know what happened when he climbed that mountain. Like, I don't know what happened with him. Like, he said some stuff about you really got to look at what Lupe has done. It's like, yo, that boy is great. So, I don't know. I just think it was like you said, like, all our stuff is, we have entirely too many options. Our food, we argue over what chicken is better. It's like, bro, we just want to be heard, man.
Yeah, nah, it's interesting to see, but moving back to what you were talking about on the second part, as it relates to the sustaining thing. I see it online. Eric, you talk about it. All kinds of people talking about it. There is this feeling sometimes that there is a brain drain that happens culturally from Chicago. In that, like, Chicago starts a lot of these slang terms, music terms, or music genres. Then it gets, because there isn't a way to really, other than the internet, there isn't like the one thing that LA and New York have always had is they have these built-in institutions as it relates to hip hop culture. So it's like, very much so like, oh, this, the labels are all in New York.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people talk about like, y'all taking this from Chicago, y'all taking this from Chicago, y'all taking this from Chicago. In talking about sustaining, do you have any ideas on what it could take for Chicago to get its? Because I feel like now, especially with the new generations, with the Chances of the world, with leading this whole new idea, it's once again spearheaded by Chicago, but it still feels like it never really comes back and gets the credit that it deserves for the entire city. Do you have any ideas of what could help build that up so that it's just like, oh no, this is the place to go? Because people always talk about, and even Chicago people I know talk about, trying to grow, but they always talk about leaving.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got to go to LA for X amount of time, or I got to go to New York for X amount of time. But for me, just being around it, it feels like, nah, if you build it here, really build it here, it is, something that's amazing. Do you have any ideas on trying to sustain?
It goes back to
grow?
what you said about having the institutions. If you from New York and you inspire to be someone in hip hop, you have the Hustle Simmons who's built Def Jam, who's still in New York. You have the Jay-Z with Rock
He ain't
Nation,
in New
who's
York
still
anymore. He's in Bali.
He be doing yoga somewhere in the jungle with
trying not to get caught.
Yeah, with three young models and
no
stuff.
extradition.
Yeah. Shout out to Hustle Simmons, man. But then you go to LA, you can see Dr. Dre and what they created, what Ice Cube has created. I think the issue with Chicago is like, we need our OGs and
to be here
and show. So like for me, I feel like I'm now becoming an OG. So when I'm on Twitter talking about the game, talking about certain stuff, I think people look at it as, man, we don't want to hear that. Nah, bro, I'm an OG. I'm trying to tell you what it is because our OGs didn't tell us what it was. Our OGs were still trying to sustain themselves. So I prided myself on not leaving Chicago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, DC's my second home. I'm in Atlanta a lot. But I never just like, let me up and move somewhere.
Yeah, this is home.
I wanted to create my legacy in my city, but I was fully aware of like, stop buying those Jordans, buy a flight and go here.
Yeah.
So I think, we need to see more of our OGs. We need to see more stuff here. Seeing Chance the Rapper still living here and seeing them in the streets helps the next generation. We don't see Ye.
Yeah.
We didn't get to see Ye. You know what I'm saying? Like we would see, Lupe, but then, Lupe was, became a superstar and stuff like that. In New York, you can hop on a train and go somewhere and stand outside a Bad Boy and be like, yo, Puff is up there right now.
Right now.
Going crazy. Or you could like see the larger life stuff like, yo, this is obtainable.
Yeah.
I think in Chicago, we don't have, that level of things here for people to see. I'm just a historian of music. So I tell people like, bro, Wabash used to have tons of record labels. Like the first U.S. record that the Beatles ever cut, they cut with a label out of Chicago. Like, we had very historic artists come from Chicago. We don't have no OGs. So for me, my legacy is not going to be Hustlepalooza. My legacy is not going to be I work with this artist or I tackle somebody off stage. All this stuff that surrounds my name. I want my legacy to be like, yo, this man created 4 more Hustle Simmons to bring it back home. But that's why we have to honor people like Closed Sessions, my man RTC having a label here. What Chance and Pat is doing and what they're doing with Social Works, you know what I'm saying? Twister still being here and doing stuff like Mano still here and stuff like that. So I just think once we use our power and not try to like conquer and divide, you know what I'm saying? Like what would happen if myself, Pat the manager, No ID, John Monop, the list can go on and on. We came together and said like, yo, let's bring a Def Jam office here. Let's bring an Epic office here and put it in a loft space and build it. You know what I'm saying? It's just like we need to do that. One thing that I love about the South, New York, and LA, their mentality is it's us versus the world. Atlanta dudes don't always like each other.
Yeah.
But they are firm believers, like, we're going to keep the power here. That's why they bring in the officers. They can go directly to the source. We are allowing our artists to kind of be misguided in this game. Yeah. A lot of these dudes don't really have OGs. And so for me, that's why I feel like over the years, my message has gotten lost in translation because I've had this chip on my shoulder. So I force my way on people. Oh, you gonna listen to me. But people like, yo, Hustle, you bugging. But I'm like, no, it's because I just want y'all to hear. I just had to go through tons of BS to get to this. So if I say, yeah, I'm successful, yeah, I made a lot of money in music, people are like, no, you didn't because you ain't false. I'm like, bro, it's money out there in music.
Yeah.
You just got to learn the game. You can't be a one-trick pony. What if you were just a producer? Mm-hmm. Where would you be right now if that was just all you can do? If it got to a point where the type of music you was trying to make people wasn't trying to hear. You know the business. You're educated. And I feel like I got a master's in figuring it out in this music. I literally
love that one.
I literally figured it out. I watched people move. I watched their mistakes, and I said, yo, even my mistakes, I owned up to my mistakes, and I've just built from it. But for me, I'm like, no, I'm going to be that OG that helps artists. I'm going to be that OG who try to bring an office here. That's why I don't take no label jobs. Yeah. I've been offered label jobs, but I'm like, I'm not about to sit in your office as an A&R trying to find the next kid who can hardly read a contract, who's talented to make an internet record. Yeah. I'm not going to do that.
Talking about artists. Yeah. Congratulations on what I'm seeing as the growth of the record that Rocky Fresh has right now with
Chris Brown.
Chris Brown.
Chris Brown, Rocky.
What made you stay in it so long? And don't say honesty, because I've seen that on one of your previous interviews too. Honesty gets you in the door, just like a big booty might get you in the door. But what makes you stay in as a manager, as a partner? What makes you stay in and grind out a relationship, or not just a relationship, but grind out with the artist, knowing that as dope as you think they might be, as great as the records you think they might be, we're not in an industry that's a meritocracy. Yeah. And so it doesn't always get rewarded.
Y'all hear these words he's using? Thank God I went to DePaul.
So it's one of those things where it's like, what made you stay in it so long? What did you see? Were there little wins that were happening, or was it just something that you inherently was just like, no, this is gonna work?
This is gonna sound weird, but I have a certain level of arrogance that gets me a long way. So I'm like when it came to Rocky, like, he's been my dog since he was 17, 18. But I really seen like, oh, he really can rap. Yeah. He gotta become what he's become. Even when he signed a record deal and went over to MMG, and it might not have panned out the way it is. At the end of the day, you can't deny talent. And so for me, I'm like, no, I can really take any artist who ain't nothing. If they got the talent, we can make this go. I'm a hustler. I'm a marketer. I'm like, really, like, when you look at music, it's a lot of kids. Because people always talking about, man, y'all always co-signing BS, man. Y'all always. I'm like, yo, it's the same thing in sports. We all know that dude in the hood who can out-jump Vince Carter, could out-hoop LeBron. He didn't have a work ethic. You know what I'm saying? So for me, when I became a manager, I feel like I gave an artist my word. Let's ride it out to the end. And some artists didn't want to stay in it. They went their separate ways or whatever. But in the case of Rocky, we did split for a little bit of time. But I've never given up my belief in Dog. And I always just said, like, man, my name, me and him will always be attached. The same way with, like, Wale. Like, I love Wale like a brother. We don't really rock with each other anymore, but when I met him on MySpace and I seen Nike boots and seen Ice Cream Girl, I'm like, yo, you can be one of the biggest to ever do this. So I feel like my vision when I see something in an artist, I feel like, yo, I co-signed them. I'm the shit. I know I can make them the shit. At the end of the day, you don't have to like what I do, but I'm going to do the work. And I feel like as long as I do the work, all I need the artist to do is just make hits. We're going to figure it out. And that's why, like, even with Rocky, it was just like, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, he wasn't putting out a lot of music on MMG, but he stayed in the studio. He stayed recording. So at the end of the day, you can't deny talent. So all we had to do is get him back motivated, put a team around him. You know, shout out his main manager, Gertler, who's amazing. Like, we just had to, like, just stay in it, because I'm like, bro, I believe in you, bro. If we could do it one time, we could do it a second time. So I guess it's part arrogance and just never giving up on, like, my belief for someone.
What brought y'all back together?
He had a kid, and we just matured. The thing about it is we had never fell out. We had never had an argument. Mm-hmm. It was a situation where he signed a deal that none of us was prepared for. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody said they want to be in the industry. They want to be in the industry. You're not really in the industry until you sign something on the dotted line that turns into business. Yeah. And when the business came into play, we wasn't the kids on the Sprinter just had these hopes and these dreams. Now it's like, Atlantic wants you to do this. The publishers want you to do this. Like, and I just think he was young and he had to just figure it out on his own. Like, it was one of those things where we was in the trenches with him, and he just got to a point where he just like, yo, I'm a man. I got to figure this out. And he grew up. Mm-hmm. You know, that was his college. He signed a deal like right before he turned 21. Yeah. So it was just like, yo, he just had to figure it out. But it got to a point where me and him had never argued. It was just a pride thing. And then we just both got to the point where it was just like, we bumped into each other, actually at an Adidas event. We chopped it up, and, you know, he had a daughter, and I was proud of him because I had a daughter. I had a daughter right when we were signing our record deal the first time with MMG, and we just talked. And it was that same love and that passion that always been there. It was just other people got in between us and pride. Yeah. And then we got back together and we talked. I told him, I was like, bro, you got my word. Give me 6 months, bro. We're going to turn up. And, you know, the legal team got him out of his situation, and we said, yo, we're going to go out there and get a situation that makes sense. And my boy Lottery threw us a oop, and we ended up at Ross.
Shouts out to Lotto.
Shout out to Lotto. And then we ended up at Rostrum, and we met with Benji. And it just made sense because Benji and Rostrum career was taking off the same time my career was taking off, or Rocky career was taking off. So we knew of each other. I patented some of the stuff I did off of Rostrum Records, and it was just like a full circle moment. And now we just have the creative control to just do what we were trying to do the first time. But now Rocky's more mature. I had to mature as a manager. And we just in a different space. My maturation process over the last 3 years has been really crazy because I didn't want to mature. I wanted to be stuck in my ways.
Why not?
Because I just felt like I still had that chip on my shoulder. Mm. And I felt like I had to prove something to people. Yeah. And even though we can say we don't care, I still care to a certain extent. Like, I just got into an argument with some Chicago dudes a couple weeks ago where they was talking about, like, we laugh at you, and you not successful in music. You didn't make this money. You didn't do this. And it's just like, bro, you know when people really do this. Yeah. They're like, you're not where I'm at, bro. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, why are y'all trying to fight me instead of just like working with me? There's a ton of Twitter A&Rs out there.
Oh, yeah.
But are you putting your last dollar in this? I've been up 200K sitting in my bank account. Yeah. 3 months later, down to $20. That's what we go through. But it's our passion for this. And I think one thing about me that has separated me from a lot of people who came up in this game with me who didn't probably like do some of the things I've done is that I was never scared to bet on myself. Some people, I was an entrepreneur. I remember quitting my last job when I was at Bloomingdale's and said, yo, I'm about to full-time do this. I was working for LeBron at the time. Shout out to my man, Rich Paul, 8081. And I just said, I'm about to just do it. And for damn near 10 years, I never had a job. Yeah. I bet on myself. So that was just for me. So my maturation process was me understanding that, damn, bro, you can't be mad at the Kenny Burns and the John Monopolies for not, grooming you. because they were still grooming themselves. All you can do, if the blessing of it is, I blaze my own path.
Yeah.
And like you said, if I would have been groomed under them, maybe I wouldn't have reached my potential. Maybe I wouldn't have done some of the things I've done. So God worked in mysterious ways, and I just had to get to a point where I was like, I got to move differently. And shout out to my man, Johnny Smalls. He said, he gave me the best advice. He was just like, yo, bro, sometimes you just got to shut up and let your work show. And that's what I did. I said, let me shut up. Let me cool on this arrogant stuff. And let me put that backpack back on and get back in the trenches and go to these offices and go to these places and shake hands and not expect people to know me. Like, humble yourself. Yeah. And that was like that was the biggest thing. Plus, I blew a lot of money. I made a lot of money and blew it.
Have you in changing, have you felt the shift in how people respond or react to you now when you walk in those spaces?
Yes, depending on where I'm at.
Some people are just always gonna have the same idea, I assume.
So it's just like, there's doors I walk in now where people's like, oh man, I heard of you. Yeah. Oh, it's a pleasure. Or they never heard of me, but they done their research and seen things that I've done. And then there are certain people who are just still stuck on. It's dudes now who later in their life starting to realize how to monetize the internet, how to figure out to be in the game, who was hating on us young kids at the time because they were still working their 9 to 5 trying to figure out how to be in it. Yeah. And we was living it. So a lot of times when people are from the same hood that you're from and you got the same 24 hours and you're doing the most to them, they don't receive it. So it's really like when I come home, I get more of the hatred when I'm back at the crib than I do any place else. And it's just like, bro, I've been to Puff crib. I've been all over it. I've rubbed elbows with some of the most powerful people in music and gotten mad advice and stuff. Then when I come home, it's just like, oh, that's just Terrence, man. Nobody care about him. So for me, I just had to be like, damn, do I really care what these people think? If I'm making sure my daughter's going to a good school, if I'm making sure my parents' bills are paid, you know what I'm saying? So I think for me, I found my why. And I think that's a thing that us young creatives of color, we have to figure out our why. And our why can't be jewelry, cars.
It can't be to turn up and stunt.
It can't be that, because it's not that hard to make a lot of money in this shit. You have to figure out what's your why. And if your why burns in you enough, you're going to figure it out. So in my maturation process, I figured out my why. And then I figured out, like, I got a master's in figuring it out. I got a bachelor's in shutting the fuck up. And once I got that bachelor's in shutting the fuck up, it was on and popping. So, you know.
I feel that. So not shutting the fuck up for a second. In terms of 2019, practical advice for taking an artist or for an artist himself going from zero to something that people hopefully care about. What are the basics for you if you were to, drill it down to like 5 things that if someone is like, okay, I made the record, now what?
First, it would be authenticity. Like, okay, yeah, you made a record, but is this record, and is it giving a piece of you, an extension of you? I mean, if you broke and been living in the hood and you talk about pushing Bentleys and stuff, like, do that make sense? Like, so one is like, is it authentic? 2, what do you want out of this? 3, who's supporting you right now? I think a lot of times artists make the mistake of, oh man, I only got 300 followers, but I want 300K followers. But it's like, bro, if you show love and communicate with those 300 people, they'll all go out and get you 10 more people and it'll grow. Yeah. That was something that was one of the keys to the success of Rocky Fresh, to get his first deal. Yeah. His old day-to-day manager, shout out my man, the homie Drew, was very good at literally sitting on the computer all day thanking anybody who said anything about Rocky Fresh, to the point it was like, oh man, and then his stuff just grew. So it would be, authenticity, what you want out of it, you know, fucking with the people who fuck with you at that time.
Yeah.
Getting out of your city and going to the people that want to hear your records. I think a lot of times artists get stuck in, I have to spend my money on trying to live up to this image instead of spending that money investing in themselves. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, oh man, I did this show, I got a couple $1,000, let me go buy the new Jordans, let me go buy this. Nah, nigga, buy that flight. Go to, if you got people telling you to come to Arizona, go to Arizona. And the last one is not being afraid to fail. I think a lot of artists, I've noticed, especially the last few years, a lot of artists are in their own way. Mm-hmm. As far as the anxiety of how can I be like this guy?
Yeah.
So it was an artist I won't say that I was managing, and he was amazing, bro. And he stopped rapping because he just couldn't take it, because he felt like the trajectory of the people that was around him was surpassing him.
Yeah.
But I said, bro, everybody has their own time. You have to just stay the course. He just couldn't take it.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't do it. So a lot of these artists, they just be, you know, in their own way. But you got people like a J. Cole who don't be in his own way. You know, he just like, yo, I can't keep trying to be this J. Cole that y'all want me to be, because he's going to come off fraudulent at times. So I got to be me. Oh, my God. I got in this industry. This shit is crazy. Oh, my God. No, I'm not about to go buy some double RL jeans to perform for y'all. I'm about to put on some sweats, some Jordan, grow my hair out, a T-shirt, and y'all going to get this work. So it's just getting out of your own way. And I think I actually got to add another one, is being unapologetic. I think
in what way?
Just doing you. Fuck it. No matter what you do, someone's gonna have something to say. Even if you sign to a label and the label is fucking with you, right? You have to be unapologetic about how you move.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you do something perfect, the label loves it, they sign you, and then they tell you the next day after the ink is dry, don't do what you've done.
Yeah, be something
totally different. You know what I'm saying? Like, even looking at what Lil Uzi's going through now, it's sad for me because he's killing it. Yeah. But they suck the fun out of this because, you know what I'm saying? So you just got to be unapologetic for the things that you do. I think Jay-Z embodies that. Jay-Z just does Jay-Z. Like, he was not.
He had a space where he was trying to figure it out too.
Yeah.
I think that something that, and I'm not going to promote what it was on because I hate the platform, but I still watch it sometimes. Biggs was on a platform.
Oh God, I know what you're talking about.
And he was discussing the transition between the, from Reasonable Doubt to through the volumes, the In My Lifetime volumes. And what he said I thought was really interesting was like, the first album, for anybody's first album, is this the idea that they have of themselves, when they're just in the studio.
Yep.
And, you're making this thing that's basically your life. It's all the things that are authentic, right? Then it comes out. Then the next thing to do is like, okay, but who are you now in the commercial space?
Yeah.
Because now there's different expectations of what you do well because you've had actual reaction to it.
Word. Okay.
And finding where that balance is, like he talked about for Jay, was this, it took a second because you had what Puff is doing is working extremely well.
Yeah.
But you had, but you did all right, but everyone looks back at Reasonable Doubt now and it's just like classic.
Yeah.
But it's his lowest selling album.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, now you have these competing interests.
Yeah.
Same thing that happened with Kids in the Hall is like we made the first project, School Was My Hustle, and then when we performed it, we were like, this doesn't move the way that we wanted to on stage. Yeah. So we had to go back and re-engineer what our idea was, even of ourselves. so I think even with Uzi and with this idea of being unapologetically you, it's interesting because I think that I have a weird not issue, but I do think that sometimes people misconstrue authentic, right? Like a lot of times people use the ideas of authentic as in service of their own ego, right? In saying like, I feel this way, this is what I want to do, and that's what I am, as opposed to really being like, no, authentic is maintaining a level of decorum in all spaces, regardless of what you're doing, that you know you can go home and be cool about. But that may transition as you go through life. Like you said, like for you, being authentic might have just been turning up every time you're in there, like, no, this is who I am, this is what I do. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, no. Oh, I just need to shut the fuck up. Yeah. But that's not any less authentic.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah. And I see a lot of, in terms of playing with this number 6, this idea of staying true to yourself, I think it's important to also really like drill home that like that doesn't mean being so stuck in your ways that you can't accept realities. Because what I will say is I've watched so many different artists during the same period go through these weird things where like they made the record, but then that record blew up and they realized they didn't like who that record made them to the public. Yeah. So now they're like, what the hell am I going to do? And some people tanked their careers because they were just like, no, that's not who I am. I'm this whole other thing.
I just seen that.
And then some people turned around and they were like, okay, this worked. I made it. It's a piece of me. It may not be the only piece of me I want, but I know that if I do 2 or 3 more of these, I'll be in a space where I can do whatever I want from this point on because I will have solidified, you know, that there's so many decisions that can be made. And I think that's the place where Uzi is now, where it's like everything's fun and games until you get the hit. And then you're like, oh, okay, so that's actually what works. Yeah. Now, how do I go back in to the studio? How do I go back in to these label meetings and have these conversations? Because all of a sudden this thing worked, and that's the expectation now. Yeah. That everything needs to follow that way.
That's funny. I just seen Marriage Boot Camp Hip Hop. And
that sounds all kinds of crazy. I didn't even know that show existed.
Yeah, it's like Waka Flocka, Soulja Boy, Little Fizz on B2K. And they had this moment where like they had to like deal with stuff that like affected them in their life. Mm-hmm. And Little Fizz drew basketball, and they was like, "What?" He was like, "Yo, I never wanted to do this B2K thing like that." He was like, "I love basketball. Yeah, I just happened to be in a group that became successful." So I had to give up my dreams, but then we broke up. So now I'm stuck as Little Fizz, and I hate it. So me wanting to create stuff that's pro artists, I'll keep it real, man. These fans don't know what they like. Yeah. To a certain extent. And then we live in this culture, especially with social media, where people want to go with what the majority, this whole like cancel culture. It's like, yo, bro, you work at State Farm Insurance. How the hell are you gonna sit on a social media platform say you're gonna cancel someone who just sold 80 million records? Like, you know what I'm saying? Cut it out. But it's just like, what happens if, so like a Little Uzi, was his success because the label told him to make a certain record, or he was just in a position where like that's what he felt and it was so good, he went out there and performed it, he made people like it. You know what I'm saying? So this is my question to you, right? Double O today, what do you tell Double O 2005? If young Double O came in here and was like, look, I just signed this deal, I'm on Rockets, we dropped this project. What do I do now? To be honest, for us specifically, like for the Kids in the Hall space, for all of those sort of things, it would have been to really double down and pay attention, A,
in Chicago. I probably should have moved. Like I should have moved out here, even if it was just for a year. But I feel like the presence here of both of us would have been strong in terms of really building this solid community around us. I think the biggest mistake that we made was we always thought not our end game, but our phase for at least 2 or 3 albums was these records will get us on a major. So we spent a lot of time making, because we grew, Knowledge and I grew up during the Rockefeller and the bad boy era of everybody out here just killing it.
Yeah.
So we only knew, realistically, when you go into the studio and you go in to make records, you really only know like that kind of stuff. So in my head, I'm just like, how do I make? Always it was, how do I concoct these things that are underground or indie in terms of like of a certain kind of feel, but have this like sheen of overground radio possibility that allows it to go. So, being able to do the, something like Driving Down the Block, that comes directly from always playing with these ideas of what was going on in Chicago at the time. What was going on with Shauna getting some head. Vans by the pack. And looking at, like, 808s are about to be crazy heavy and all this sort of stuff, like playing with those ideas. And that was for me what I was always doing. So it would have been, don't chase that. Don't chase the radio, because without a radio budget, you don't have a radio smash. You can sneak some stuff in there. Driving Down the Block was an example of that. Like, you can get Flex to drop a bomb on something. You can get those sort of things to happen. But the massive scale, especially at that time, couldn't exist yet. Now it might have been different. Who knows what would have happened if it went straight to streaming, and you had this ability to just immediately be heard by anything and everybody. You didn't have to go through some of those gatekeepers you still had to in 2005, 2006. So that would be the big thing. Moving to Chicago would probably be it. And back then, it was really about social media play that I wish I would have concentrated on more. We were on Twitter in like 2007, South by Southwest. It was like Herb Magazine hit up. It was like us, Flostradamus, and I forgot who else. But we were just like on the front page. They were like, start a Twitter account and then we're going to follow you guys. And no one knew what we were doing. We were just like, oh, okay, Twitter, this thing that you just say, I went to go get a sandwich.
Exactly.
But like really diving in and understanding that was about to be the world. I think having that sort of stuff, I would have liked to, because what I tell every artist is, when you build those foundations, it can't be taken away from you if anything shifts in the other space. And that was the problem with us, is as we shifted into, whether the label was going to spend X amount of dollars on a single or not, or not even, and people don't think we dealt with this, but we have, because I think you deal with this with any partner or institution, like switching a single because it was like, these couple people didn't really react to it. I don't think we would have gone in certain directions if it was just like, we know we have these 15, 20,000 people, whether it be email addresses, whether it be whatever, like this core of people we know we can always feed and build with. I think that a lot of fans don't know what they want, but I think there's definitely a select core that you end up finding that really do understand it. And it's just really about kind of like building a relationship with them, getting feedback, seeing all that stuff, and then it kind of like it scales out sort of.
That was
from
something
there.
I was just saying as far as about like artists, like understanding that stop trying to chase 1 million followers and concentrate on the ones that fuck with you. And I think in this day and age, as a manager, our job is harder now than ever before, right? Because the manager is doing so. The artists nowadays, you can say whatever about the mumble raps or whatever. These kids are very smart.
Oh yeah,
these kids are super to analytics and all this stuff. So it's funny that like working with certain artists, like they'd be like, look, okay, I got to make this type of record because you know, Lil Uzi made this. But then you have that artist on the other side that's like, man, fuck that. I'm about to. You got somebody like Tierra Whack who put out a song with her mumbling. It was like super dope, and it's like, yo. Who let you even upload that record? Because it was one of those things where somebody like, come on, bro, you can't upload that. Yeah. So we just live in a day and age where like the artist is really smart and they can go direct to consumer with streaming. But I think with that type of power, we need a little bit more guidance with these artists. And you know, I know artists out there that self-managing themselves and all this stuff. Like, I know artists got one record and they make $1 million off it like that, and then they're like, what do I do next?
Yeah.
Because I didn't even make an album. I just put this record out on social media or whatever. So I think with me now, I had to understand that the game is evolving, but I also had to understand that Hustle Simmons, the brand, can't outweigh the artist that I'm managing. And I think once I got out of my way and understood that, that's why me and Rocky dynamic works now, because before I was like, Rocky, don't do that. Because I looked at things I seen Wale and Big Sean and certain dudes do that. I was like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. But now I'm more in the studio with him. I'm like trying to get his ideas. Like I'm trying to like understand them, because it's like, you know, like working with Rostam has been like a breath of fresh air, because we pretty much like, we don't wait for them to tell us anything.
Yeah.
We come up with what we want to come up with, and we go to them like, this is what it is. How can you enhance it? What do you think? Let's go. And our partnership has worked really, really well. It just sucks that I've seen so many groups and so many artists come out that was super dope, but it's all about the timing, and it's all about people understanding it. And I feel like, you know, driving down the block, if it came out today on streaming, that record's gone. Like,
yeah, nah. And what's fun?
And artists don't even need the radio. Like, it's like, I know artists, I know a radio station who's ripping records off of SoundCloud to play on the radio. Like, they don't have like the rep going there and be like, play this. You know what I'm saying? Our record, Must Be, is doing really well, and we just started getting radio play. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, in this, you have to become a student of this game to really stay in it now, more so than ever, because now it's a million dudes trying to be Puff. It's a million people trying to do certain things. And then for me, one of the things I had to learn is, I used to always say, and I still say it, there's no award for what I do behind the scenes, right? Because I do so much different stuff. It's not like a manager award or marketer award or something like that. So I think I spent a lot of time wanting people to be like, damn, that shit that Hustle did was super, super dope. You can't let you in the industry, whatever your thing is in the industry, outgrow you as a person on the normal shit. Yeah. And at a certain point, Hustle Simmons, my brand was growing, but me as just Terrence, I wasn't kicking it with my friends really anymore. I wasn't like just going to my family house and chilling. Like, I was so consumed of becoming this brand that I was in my own way. And it came from being on the internet and comparing myself to the next person. It's people who I mentored who just leaped over my ass. I'm like, damn, nigga, you got a Bentley? Damn, sheesh. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like, it's just about, you know,
it's about the why.
Yeah, and that's why. So for me, I had some resentment for years toward the John Monops and the Kenny Burns, because like I felt like, damn, y'all didn't want to rock with me, so now y'all my prey.
Yeah. Instead
of just understanding, like, now where I'm at in my life, it's people who want to work with me that I really don't have the time for. But I feel like it was a blessing that I didn't work with them, because I was able to figure out on my own. But I still have a super huge respect for them. I love Monop. I'm glad Monop is back. You know what I'm saying? With Ye. It's just one of those things where this music industry is a bitch, man.
Well, because, you know, what I say is that, I mean, there's no roadmap to success in it. And it's not a basic. It's not. People compare it to athletics, but it's not at all, because in athletics, the fastest person wins. The person who scores the most points wins. It's like it's a super very, very, and it's just like, okay, if I get these certain kind of these stats, that's going to mean me graduating to the next step. Whereas, like, in the industry, it could be, especially now, because there is no gatekeepers like there used to be. Yeah. You could have a comedian with a top 10 record.
Exactly.
You could turn around and have, Baby Shark out here smashing the game.
Who wrote Baby Shark? Baby is crazy. And I say that often, like, the crazy thing about the music industry is everybody's just one hit away.
Yeah, especially more so now.
Yeah. Like, when you look at Little Duval, and it's like, this dude been a comedian for 20 plus years. And he made a song that the success he's had from that one song has surpassed all the stages that he's been on as a comedian. Yeah. And it's just, I mean, the Baby Shark record, like they play that in hood clubs, and people go up to it. Like I promise you, I was just in the club, and the DJ was being funny and played Baby Shark. They do, but the niggas knew what Baby Shark was. I'm like, you like that's why I'm like, who wrote Baby Shark? Like, it's a crazy thing. What I will say, as far as like the parallel between that and sports, it's a show on Netflix that I think everybody should watch. It's called Losers. Mm-hmm. So it tells the story of these special, infamous people who lost in sports. Yeah. But what came from it. Yeah. And so in music, a lot of times, you could be skilled. Like, it's niggas that play in the NFL that's very skilled. Yeah. But you still got to have a mindset to put your body through what you have to put your body through. And these kids need to get a mindset of understanding that one of the most beautiful things about becoming successful in music and making certain money and getting certain accolades is when you look back to when you was fucked up and you was broke, you're like, that shit was fun. Like, think about where you was, like, now where you at, and think about where you were when you was in the dorm room, like, I mean, figuring, you know what I'm saying?
Not even the dorm room. I was just talking to Knowledge. Our first photo shoot here, I had to take the train back to New York from Chicago, because it was just like, that's what we had. Yeah. It was like a 20-hour. But I think of all those things. I think of like when all of us were down at South by Southwest, and everybody's just like, you got a floor that I could sleep on because I don't have a hotel room, or you got or when Closed Sessions did the little mansion or spot, and it's just like, okay, cool, so I'm sleeping on the couch. Yeah. But all of the ideas, you realize as you get more successful that journey, and we can end it even here, that journey is always going to be some of the most fun times you have. So appreciate it, enjoy it. Yeah. But let's bring some shit back to Chicago. Thank you.
Appreciate you having me, bro.